And we're live.
All righty.
Hey Frank, how you doing?
Pretty good, pretty
Good,
good.
good. For all the viewers that would like to know who Frank is, he's a very good friend of mine. He is one of my Patreon supporters, and we just became friends. We kept in contact. We became friends, and it just goes to show. y- it just goes to show that people can become friends from any platform and stuff. And so yeah, I really appreciated Frank's help. Frank used to be in the army at one point, the US Army, and I brought him on board, so he knows a lot about the United States politics. We're going to talk about the midterms. We're also going to be talking about Ukraine, Russia as well. He's got a wealth of knowledge. You guys will really enjoy listening to him, and I'm really, really honored to have Frank on board. So how are you feeling, Frank? How's things going with you? How's everything?
Oh, pretty good. Normal fall, getting ready for winter. You know, she comes
W-
fast and furious.
Sure. Where are you living right now?
Northern Wisconsin,
Wisconsin.
way
Yeah.
up north. Yeah, yeah. Little tiny town. I like it that way.
Good,
Except
good.
for the Wi-Fi and reception with your phones. It's all good. It's all good.
Excellent. You used to be with the army. Can I ask you where you served? Thanks for your service, first of all. Where did you serve and what year?
Well, it was. I never made it to Nam, and I was at the tail end of it. And I served in Hawaii actually. And the funny thing was, the reason I ended up in Hawaii is I couldn't pass the colorblind test for demolition. So they asked me, "How's Hawaii sound?" I thought they were BSing me, but I said, "Sure." So I spent 4 years in the military and ETS'd out. And when I got back home, it was like, it didn't matter. It didn't matter as far as your service in the military. You couldn't get a job, but that was in the early 80s. Jobs, you could almost have to buy them. But so that's always been my question with government and why regular people have such a hard time making it. And that's been an ongoing question throughout my life, but neither here nor there. But I've lived up here for most of my life, and I like it up here. People are good, and we don't have the crime or anything like that. So it's a good place to raise my boy. So I never regretted where I ended up. Put it that way.
Excellent, excellent. But yeah, before we start on the midterms, I want to thank everyone that's joined in so far, all the moderators. I really appreciate you guys joining. Thanks for everyone listening. And don't forget to like, share, and stuff. It does help with the algorithm. And again, I just want to say Frank is a very good friend of mine. He's a Patreon supporter. If you guys want to join in any future live shows, don't forget you're welcome to join me in my Patreon and and locals as well. And you're welcome to kind of come in and have a chat. I'm happy to chat with you. And so let's get started, Frank. What do you think about what's happening with the midterms? It seems to be neck and neck at the moment. What do you think is going on? We all thought that Biden's going to lose this badly, but it's crazy.
Well, it's just continuing on what we've done in the past. I could go on about rigging elections and all that, but everybody that's on this panel probably knows that's a fact. But I guess people are to the point where nothing surprises them anymore. They know one thing. They're not ever, it's real tough to vote for somebody who you really want because they never make it to the platform at the end. So, in my opinion, it's who they appoint, the central banks, the globalists, who you end up seeing and who they approve of. But as far as the midterms go, everybody was saying red wave, this and that. Oh, it's going to be a tsunami. And I totally disagreed with everybody. I said, no, it isn't. It's going to be the same old thing. Yeah, they might gain a little bit in Congress, but as far as it a big landslide, I knew that wasn't going to come. I've made statements to that fact. And the reason why I say that is people are almost to the point where the people that do vote are starting to realize it doesn't really matter in a way because things aren't going to change really. I mean, there's hardly any difference between the two except for social issues and stuff like that. And a normal person would actually accept the fact that, oh boy, this is going to be a landslide and all this. But I just talking to people and, friends and relatives and this and that, there was no real, biggest thing, I guess, is like with the Republicans. They never really, I don't know what you want to call it. They never really campaigned. The only campaign they were producing was, we're not those guys. Okay. And that was it. They didn't have any plans because they're both responsible for where we're at now, without a doubt. Inflation, job losses, all this stuff. They're both at fault, and that isn't lost on people. There's less than 50% of people that eligible voters that actually vote. And the other 50%, they just continue on their lives, fight through whatever they have to fight through, and just totally ignore it. And to me, from what I've seen, it's going to take a lot of suffering before people really, really wake up. You know what I'm saying? People start looking into the reason why we're in these positions and, things like that. But even with 2024, we'll have an economic downturn so bad that might wake some people up. But I don't know. I really don't think you'll see a lot of difference.
Sure, but do you think vote rigging has got something to do with it, or do you actually think that the American people are not suffering enough to vote for the other side yet, like the Republicans, for example? I mean, isn't the gas prices high enough, do you think, or do you think it's going to have to get more higher, and interest rates, if they get higher, people start have to get losing homes? Are we looking at,
Well,
big
that's all
economic?
that's all going to come without a doubt.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And for what I know throughout history and, watching politics and geopolitics and foreign affairs and all that stuff, there's hardly any, but, there's maybe a few million, well, maybe more than that, but there isn't that many awake people. There isn't that many informed people. And like I said, it's going to take bad suffering, and it's coming without a doubt. They've kept things at bay until the midterms, but things are going to start changing really quick. And as far as food prices, all these things, they're just going to keep going higher. We've had a lot of things that happen in this country, food plants burning, with Biden doing the sanctions on Russia with the fertilizer. I know farmers personally, and the money they have to spend, it's unbelievable. It just shocked me. I was on a farm when I was younger, but the cost of planting alone is going to have a definitely direct effect on our food prices. As far as oil, that's going to go up. Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind it's going to go up. And once it does, well, midterms are already done. You got to wait 2 years to make anything happen. So I hate to see people suffering, but I think that's what it's going to take, without a doubt. The people that aren't being informed and the people aren't paying attention, they're going to start asking questions. And that's why it's important for channels like yours, AJ, because if you're not out there, they'll never hear it. They'll never hear it from mainstream media. They're owned by the same people that own our government, really. So,
yeah, and also people like you as well, because you're here, you're speaking as well, and you're obviously doing your own research, listening to the right people. So it takes effort from everybody, really. We can put stuff out there, but if nobody's looking at it or listening to it or sharing it, liking it, doing the support, then it's just worthless, really. So before I get to my next question, there's two parts to this election. There's the Senate vote and there's the House vote. The Republicans are obviously winning the House vote, but they're neck and neck with the Senate. Do you want to tell the viewers, that those who do not understand US politics, what that means?
Well, and it's on policy, really, as far as Ukraine goes, or anything else. And like, like Congress, I kind of expected to be, more towards the Republicans. Senate, I didn't see any real candidates out there, and there's still a couple out there that are iffy. Even like Wisconsin, Senator Johnson against Barnes. Well, that's pretty close. They're not done counting, and if they stay even, like I think they will, you won't see much difference. You won't see any difference, really, in my opinion. Because like I said, they're both at fault for why we're here, and I don't hear any plans or policies that are going to change our situation here as far as regular folks. They're counting faster than I thought they would. Because Biden was putting out, oh, we may have to be patient and wait for the counting to be done. But I think they were just as surprised at the outcome as all the people that declared it was going to be a red tsunami. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if there's any hinky things going on, they didn't have to go through with some of it, put it that way. And you got to be careful what you say on here too. So, if I was you were sitting here next to me inside my house, I'd be saying other things, but I don't want to get you demonetized or your channel shut down.
Oh,
But
it's okay. I've been demonetized plenty of times here.
well, yeah, but it's still, the
Sure.
people who are on this panel probably pretty much understand where I'm going with that.
Yeah.
So if they have any questions, you put up my email, I'll be glad to tell them the truth. What I mean?
Sure.
But like I said, both of them have their ways of, I don't want to use the word cheating, but I'd say they both have their own ways of keeping themselves in power. And there's all kinds of things, like Citizens United. That's when Citizens United, well, that makes corporations people. And if that makes them people, they can donate all they want to these elections. And it's astounding. What was it? Estimated $4 billion was spent on the last presidential election. $4 billion.
Yep.
And they don't want to lose money, so they'll get what they paid for. I can guarantee you that.
Sure. I also wanted to talk to you about Georgia. And Georgia looks like it's going to head off to another runoff because none of the candidates got their 50% votes. So this is the second time in 2 years it's going to another vote in December. How do you think that will fare, and why do you think this is? Is it because not many people are voting in Georgia? Everyone's kind of staying away from politics. What do you think this is?
Well, the same people who voted before are voting again. Okay, they want a little bit of change. Everybody does, but like I said, the people here are just in that point where it's either I'll vote for who I usually vote for, or the thing of it is when people that don't vote, the people that are sitting on the side, never really voting, never really informing themselves, I would say when the people that just want to be left alone are going to get involved. And until that time, it's going to stay the same. As far as the outcome of that election, it's a toss-up. I would have to say that it would be. I would go with that. What is his name? Walker, ain't it? Herschel Walker. Is that his name? I can't remember.
Yep.
Yeah, I think he'll win in the end. But most people figured that would have been a landslide. But no, is that Warnock's got bad baggage, and you see it with the governor races in Oregon and Arizona. they only have 66% of the votes counted. Okay, 66%.
Yeah.
In a state that has more more people voting, they're already done. They were done early this morning with their counting. So, and they all every state has their different rules and laws for voting. It's not all the same across where we vote. They have the runoffs there, and in Georgia, well, that's not like that in any other state, and it adds a lot of confusion. And even like New York, and there's other states like New York that you have to go in beforehand. If you are always voting Democrat, you have to go in and register as a Republican before you can vote Republican. So there's a lot of things could be changed. And I'd say take money out of politics would be the one thing that they did that would, that would end all this. But that ain't going to happen. There's too much money to be made.
Yeah. Okay, so I've heard some stories about Maricopa County in Arizona, in Phoenix, and apparently their machines broke last night, ran out of ink. Do you think this sounds pretty dodgy? Do you think anything?
It's all dodgy because people showed up there and they had to go somewhere else to vote because the machines, they can vote, right? Okay. But the computer was telling the voters that the computer misread their vote. So they had to just keep voting, put them in a stack, and a Republican and a Democrat would go through every one of those votes to see see where they voted. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that started it out. Then later on, like you said, they ran out of ink and all that stuff. Well, they had problems in Maricopa County during a couple of elections. The primary with Bernie and with Hillary. They had such long lines. They shut down a bunch of the voting polls. So they had long lines, and it was into midnight where they were voting. So, and then Harris County, Texas. They showed up, machines were broke. You got to go over here. They show up over there. Those were broke. So they had to wait, then go back and vote. How many people are going to do that? How many, they'd be so angered that the chance of them, they'd have to really, really want to vote hard to go back and try her again. So there was a lot of issues going on, and they always happen in the same states.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point, Frank. So I'm going to go back to Hillary Clinton. She seems to be very pleased with some of the results, and especially she was campaigning about pro-abortion and things like that. However, she's only won in Michigan, California, and Vermont. What do you think about Hillary and her agendas? Do you think she's got an alternative agenda? I mean, what's
Well, let's
her
look
play?
at a little history with the Clintons. Most people don't know that the first run he had at any office, old Bill, was in Congress, and he was going to be a no-money candidate, for the people, blah, blah, blah. Well, they learned that don't work. So he ran for governor, and he was the youngest governor ever there, supposedly, and he won there. Well, his second election, he lost. And then he turned around, and they ran a second time, Arkansas, and he won, okay? Well, things along that time, I don't know if any of you guys are old enough to remember, the Iran-Contra affair, okay?
Yep.
That's where they were dealing drugs to make money to buy weapons for the Sandinistas,
Yep.
okay? Well, it was totally illegal. They weren't supposed to do it without Congress's approval. So that all blew up, and that all got they went through their little show trials, and nobody got thrown in prison or anything in that order. But the reason I bring this up is in Arkansas, there was a little airport, and all these things come out later, you know, as far as CIA having this one fella that fly into cocaine, and that went on for years. And then one question was asked of Bill Clinton, did you know about this airport? Oh, they didn't tell me anything, he said. But one time when the DEA finally had the guy, tons of cocaine, millions of dollars, they called up the governor, and the governor made sure, no, let him go. Just let him go. That's all it was. Well, Hillary learned back then, if you have dirt on anybody, well, that's your ticket to keeping in power. And that crime family's been at it for years. And people don't see it. I guess they don't know all the ins and outs of it. And I think she has so much dirt on so many people in Washington and the higher ups is the only reason neither one of them are in prison, in my opinion.
Yep.
And when Trump was in office, they didn't have any ends to the White House. But as soon as Joe Biden got in there, he follows the orders of the Clintons. Same with Obama. People really want to know what's going on in the State Department. Well, all of those people that are in the State Department worked under Hillary. And Hillary's the one that started the old Ukraine issue. So, I don't think she's lost any power. Now she's got a show now. It's called ODYSEE, her Apple TV streaming show with her daughter. And they go across the country and interview the women that fought against all odds to be famous or whatever, right? She's just softening up her image because you can take this to the bank or even Vegas. You can vote on elections in Vegas. She will run in 2024. It won't be Joe Biden. She's going to run in 2024.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. There's no doubt about it in my mind. I know her because I can just put myself in her mind to being a psychopath and greedy and power hungry.
Yeah, she is.
And that family has started this country down a road to ruin.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the clip when Gaddafi was killed. She was celebrating. She was throwing her fists up in the air. And she was saying,
and laughing, and we came, we killed.
Yeah, so we came, we saw, we conquered. She got that from some film. So the sounds of it.
Yeah, and I know why they offed him. Well, sat in front of the UN and says, "I'm going to peg the dinar to gold. I plan on doing that, and that's what I'm going to do." Well, you can't have that, can we? This has all been petrodollar wars, in my opinion, and their hegemony. There's no way they want a small country like that. And actually, at the time, it was the wealthiest country in Africa to have that sovereignty, that, freedom to, stuff it to everybody else. And, our money's pegged to gold, and that's that. Well, it didn't take long. I don't know, a couple of months or so before they came in there, had those crazy people that they, gave a little bit of money and support to, and they drug him down the street. It was the most horrible death for anybody. And he sure as hell didn't deserve that. And so, I don't know. And people don't see that. That kind of irks me in a way, but I can understand people going through their lives and trying to keep their head down or what have you, but not many people put that much time into keeping an eye on things. And I at least want to know what's going on so I can try to hedge my bets and stay ahead of them. So
Sure. So it looks like there's 3 states still remaining. There's Arizona, there's Nevada, and there's Georgia. They all seem like previous Republican areas. So can we assume that they're all going to be won by the Republicans, and Republicans will finally take the lead?
Are you talking about the Senate or
Senate? Yeah.
Senate?
No, this is the Senate. Yeah, the Senate.
Well, like I said, different states have different laws. I can check here quick, but I don't want to mess anything up here. I should add another laptop here. But
Mm.
from what I'm seeing, if they count long enough, they do enough counting, then it'll go towards the Democrats. And of course, there's going to be fury over that. So we'll have to wait and see how this pans out. Alexander McCurris, he said, well, we're going to wait till like Monday to really flesh this out. he ain't that silly, You just never know. You just never know. To tell you the truth, I don't trust it at all. I really don't. I vote, but I could really wish I could vote for somebody I want to vote for, but until that time comes, I'm not going to have a whole lot of hope of change. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, correct. I was speaking to Lucas yesterday. He was a former U.S. Marine, and
Yeah.
he even said he's not going to even bother voting or checking the votes because he doesn't care. They're both same size of a different coin, or different same coin, different same side. And he said if the Republicans win, what they'll probably do is just try and mess around with Biden's policies and argue with him at every turn.
Yeah.
And but they're not going to suggest anything better. In fact, they're just as much warmongers as the Democrats. They'll probably want to start a war with Iran or even Saudi Arabia or even the big one with China. So what do you think? What are we heading that way with the Republicans? Or
Well,
it seems like they're bored with Ukraine
all
already, aren't they?
it's all going to depend on the economics myself. This whole Ukraine thing, well, I was surprised that President Putin took this long to invade. You know what I'm saying? So, as far as starting wars with Iran and this and that, I think as long as they can keep the hegemony and they can keep things to a point where, it's all kind of disruptive enough to where they can't go through with their plans. That's their main thing. I don't think they're going to want to start a war with Iran. As far as Saudi Arabia, it all depends on if China, Saudi Arabia, and Russia, well, BRICS, BRICS, whatever you want to call it now,
Yeah.
if they decide to use a world reserve,
Yeah.
their world reserve, that's the only time I think anything actually, any war would start. Myself.
Yeah, because that would be the end of the dollar. Because if you look at the BRICS countries, you have some major countries in there with huge economic might, very massive oil producers, gas producers as well. So you got obviously China with its huge economy, you got Russia with its huge reserves of oil and gas. And Saudi Arabia join and they start, pegging their oil to the new BRICS currency rather than the dollar. And you got obviously up and coming countries like India and Brazil. I mean, these countries alone are bigger than the G7, are much bigger. They have more clout, they have energy, and any reserve currency that comes out of them would immediately become number one within a few years, I would say, and I think would be a real massive escalation of the dollar collapsing. And I just do not think that the United States will let that happen. I think they would rather go to war than let the dollar slide and let the dollar out of.
Yeah.
If the dollar falls out of reserve currency, for example, that's the end of the United States because there's going to be hyperinflation. The amount of debt that they've got, 31 trillion. If the dollar falls, then that's it. That would be the end of U.S. society. So what do you think about the dollar
Yeah,
falling?
you're totally right there. But here's why I want to add something there is the fact that Russia and China have both been buying gold, producing gold, and buying as much gold as they can. They know. And they've been working on a different world reserve for at least 10 years, at least. And it's coming. They're trying to fight it, but it's coming. I mean, a country can't act like the way they've been acting and give up all their manufacturing and all these things and expect to stay, a powerhouse. You know what I'm saying? And this has been slowly decades where we're shipping jobs overseas and leave us with a stock market, a Wall Street, service industry economy. It's bound to fail. And then printing this money like they have been, and going to war and spending trillions and trillions of dollars for nothing more than just to keep their hegemony, to keep their petrodollar alive. Same thing with Saddam Hussein. He wanted to start selling oil in euros. Well, it wasn't long after that. Oh, weapons of mass destruction and this and that. And so
same with Gaddafi.
Well, Gaddafi and Saddam Hussein.
Yeah.
And it wasn't long after that. And I tried to explain to people back then that why we go into Iraq. There's no reason for it. They're just they weren't in any kind of partnership with the Taliban, number one. And he actually kept a lid on that place. He was crazy as hell, but he kept a lid on it. So as far as the dollar dying, it's going to die. It's throughout history. Dutch, England, they all go through this. It's a dying empire, and they're trying to fight for whatever they have. In my personal opinion, they want to keep their hegemony long enough to create a digital token and take away our money and basically try to keep control of the world that way. Well, Russia's not going to wait for that. China's not going to wait for that. Actually, 8 years ago or so, China was already talking to Saudi Arabia about selling oil and yuan. I mean, this is speeding it up is all. So, it's a dying empire. In a way, it would help the citizens in this country to be able to take their country back and right the ship and try to get things back to somewhat normal, for a different word. But we're heading that way, and there's nothing they can do. They will start some kind of, when all else fails, they go to war. And that's just the way they do it.
Sure. I'm seeing a lot of reports about US troops going into Haiti or Haiti. Do you know anything about that? I haven't done much research on it. Do you know much?
And I had seen something blip up a day or two ago about what's going on in Haiti, and that's all. I didn't put any more time into it, and I should look into it, but I have no clue why they would be there. You know what I'm saying? Other than to beef up a certain, like where Haiti is, to have some kind of military installation there of some sort, whether it be naval or land. That's about the only thing I can think of.
Sure. So you heard about the 101st Airborne being in around Ukraine, and we know that in Kherson there's a lot of civilians being evacuated as well, and looks like Russia's ready to make a big offensive. So do you think these US troops will get involved in this offensive in Kherson, or will they maybe try and stop Russia from going into Odessa? Because once Russia takes Odessa, that's a huge loss for Ukraine, but not only Ukraine, a huge loss for NATO, because I'm sure there's a few NATO bases there as well. What do you think about the next few months? How do you think it'll play out?
Well, you're right there. They don't want them to take Odessa. And the reason why they're mobilizing, Russia's mobilizing and this and that, they popped 101st in there to throw a scare into President Putin. Well, you're not going to scare him. The guy doesn't bluff.
Yeah.
And if he does take Kherson and moves north, he's going to take Odessa, because that's a Russian basically a Russian city, you know. It always has been,
Yeah.
mostly Russian speaking people. And I think the 101st was there to like throw a scare or kind of buffer it. Some people think they want to use that as a peacekeeping mission and pull the same thing like they did in Syria. So they got a chunk and Russia's got a chunk, and they just torment Russia by being there, just like in Syria. And they're actually add more troops there in Syria. And if you ask a normal average citizen, do you know we got troops in Syria? Oh no, we don't. They wouldn't believe you unless you showed it to them. So if it gets really nasty and things are looking, especially if the BRICS gets together and they decide to go ahead with that, would be the only time I see U.S. troops moving into Ukraine. I think they're just there. I don't think they're going to fight Russia to keep them from taking Odessa, because they know they haven't enough troops or willing troops or anything in that nature, or the money to fight a full-scale war with Russia.
Yeah, exactly. I think they're there just to kind of give directions to the Ukrainian troops,
Yeah.
like they've done. And there's also stories that these troops are also operating American military hardware that the Ukrainians cannot, because a lot of Ukrainians who are trained using American hardware, we're talking about HIMARS and shoulder-based weapons and many other, tank busters, most of them have been killed or injured or captured. So there's a real shortage of Ukrainian troops with training with American hardware. So there's stories coming out of Redacted and various other news articles. Obviously, I can't prove it. No, it's not proven. But they're saying that the Americans are either there to train Ukrainian troops or they are there to basically run these like things like HIMARS and anti-air, and they're there to operate these units themselves. What do you think about that?
It doesn't surprise me. I would have to, if I were to make a guess, or, I would say they're already there. When this first started, before I found your channel, I had seen a clip. This is when they were mobilizing to invade Ukraine. And I seen a clip, and it was U.S. Special Forces with soldiers, Ukraine soldiers, training them and giving them pointers. And it was a whole clip. Now you can't find it, of course. I couldn't find it 2 days later. You can see them. There were American troops, and I'm sure, without a doubt, that there's certain pockets and units in Ukraine now operating this equipment. They're saying they're not there, but they always do that. They always say that. They did it in Nam. They did it everywhere else. I without a doubt, they're either helping them and training them, but there's no way that with all the losses Ukraine has, where the U.S. soldiers aren't in Ukraine. They're there. I know they are. I just know it.
Sure. And how do you think all of this will play out after the midterms? Because Biden has taken a lot of steps to make sure he wins enough seats in the midterms. And I'm talking about lowering the gas reserves, US's national reserves. He's been lowering them every year to obviously lower the gas prices. And after the midterms, do you think he's just going to cancel that now because the midterms have gone? He obviously did it to win the midterm. So other gas prices is going to start going up again.
Well, yeah, because number one, people don't realize, and you can find this out easily, that U.S. oil producers export about 50% of what they produce. Mm. The only reason they would keep them from exporting oil and making them sell it here, because they basically own the government, big oil. Yeah. But they export 50% of what there's numbers from 37 to 50%. Now I would say it'd be higher because they're shipping so much LNG across the ocean to Europe. And a lot of that strategic national reserve was shipped overseas. It wasn't kept here. You know, they know how to work with big oil to make it look good. But now they're making bang up money. There's not going to be anything to stop big oil from keep shipping LNG to Europe. This is a boon for them.
Yeah.
So I would say gas prices will go up. I would say oil is going to go up. And that's just a fact of it. It's not going to drop. There's no way. There's no way possible that oil's going to drop. And I don't think them pressuring big oil to keep from exporting is going to stop them. They're going to keep doing that without a doubt. Without a doubt in my mind, it's going to go up. And you got to get used to the fact that gas is going to go up.
Exactly. It's all about big oil and these big corporations, and they all want to make the profit. And the same thing's happening in UK. We have Shell and BP making billions in profits. We're talking about 81 billion in 3 months, I believe. BP have made. Shell is making probably even more. And imagine all that money that could have been useful in an economy, except it's just going to hit the pockets of these rich conglomerates, shareholders, and all they'll do is just put it into an offshore account, buy properties around the world. They're not going to invest in the people or the country itself. And and this is what's happening in UK. It's what's happening in USA, Canada even. So yeah, that's the problem about letting these companies get so powerful and running these oil corporations. I think one of the things that Saudi have done, they've nationalized obviously their main company Aramco, and they've nationalized it. So all the money that comes out of oil, it goes back into the country. France has nationalized their energy companies as well. It's only England, United States, and Canada which haven't. A few other Western countries as well, and he's just giving too much power to these big oil companies. And when do you think they'll start clamping down on these oil companies and their profits? Because they are making all the money while the people are just suffering. People are the ones who end up with the bill. They have to pay higher gas prices. They have to pay higher electricity prices, higher prices for goods, for inflation. While these, oil companies just getting away with billions and billions in their pocket. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, people don't realize in the United States that the U.S. has been subsidizing oil since it was $10 a barrel. How many decades ago was that? It's a fact to me that this government is run by central banks, large corporations, and nobody can tell me any different. It isn't a democracy. They're not there for us. They'll keep us at bay. Oh, throw us a bone here or there, but they're not going to clamp down on big oil. They're just not going to do it. It's just a fact of life. Until the people wake, until the people start really mobilizing and protesting and doing something like that, they're not going to change. You can tell by the election. There's no reason for them to change. In their mind, they have the mandate. Oh, well, they don't mind what's going on. We just keep on keeping on. And they'll continue to do that until we definitely stand up. Until that happens, they're not going to clamp down. Same with the same sort of people that have control of the U.S., has control of UK, all of the EU. And you notice that's just the countries that are really, really starting to suffer. You know what I'm saying? So what's that tell you? They pulled the sanctions. They knew, you can't tell me they didn't, that it would wreak this havoc. And I think with the Green Taliban involved and WEF and the Davos cruise, and they want us broke, dependent, and obedient. That's all they want. That's as far as they're concerned with us. We're the last thing on their mind. Put it that way.
So do you think that the United States has done one sanction too many to Russia? So when you look at all of the sanctioned countries around the world, the biggest countries that got sanctioned is Iran, Venezuela, Russia. There's many other countries as well, but those three together they have the largest oil and gas reserves in the world if you put them all together, even larger than Saudi Arabia. But the only difference with Saudi Arabia has got a very high production capacity. So obviously they've been investing in their oil fields and stuff. But Iran has got untapped resources of oil, gas. Same with Russia. I think 70% of Russia is still untapped. Same with Venezuela. And if these countries get together, start producing oil based based on what they can do, and and they sell their oil in a completely different currency like the BRICS, or a completely different currency like their own currency. That could be the end of dollar as we speak, without even the BRICS even, because if the dollar is based on the petrodollar, and these three countries are producing more oil than the rest of the world combined, then that in itself could be the end of the dollar as well. I mean, isn't? Do you think they've just sanctioned Russia one? It's just one too many sanctions, and they completely underestimated what this would cause, not to the world, but mainly to the West. I think Europe especially.
I think they were a little surprised that it didn't affect Russia one iota. That part blew them away. They,
Yeah,
and see, that's the problem when you have these neocons. All they want is war. So in charge. So as far as when Russia invaded Ukraine, I had a good feeling about it because of number one, that I knew by him going into the Ukraine is going to expose all the corruption that was in the Ukraine, the biolabs, everything. And
yeah,
I've been watching President Putin since he became president. He's not a dummy. He's intelligent, and he's a cagey dude. He wouldn't have invaded if he didn't think he was going to succeed, without a doubt with that. By him invading, though, what you got to understand, all these other countries got emboldened. They see, well, he did this, and that's where you're starting to see all of this BRICS and all of this new world reserve and all of these things. He emboldened them. They see they can beat the U.S.
yeah,
They can see it now. Now there's blood in the water. There's blood in the water, AJ, and they're not going to stop now. It's just a matter of time when they do create this new world reserve. And U.S. could go ahead and start some war somewhere, but that isn't going to last long. It just isn't. They don't train our military like they used to. When I was in, it was the same kind of combat Russia's doing now. They switched over, and I even seen it on my way out, I was in Fort Bliss, where they were testing all these new XM1 tanks and all that. They were going everything they was painted. Everything was painted desert colors.
mm,
And then that should have been an indication there. But they had to keep these smaller countries like Iraq and all these countries that produce oil under their thumb to sell oil in dollars, because that's our only worth. If people using our world reserve, of course, it's in regular business, but oil itself is basically, instead of gold backing our money, it's oil backing our money, and people trading in oil with our dollar. And once they do this, they're going to do it. It's just a matter of time. But they've gotten emboldened with Russia invading and seeing that they're winning, and they have a firm control of what's going on there in Europe. It like I said, it's just a matter of time. Just a matter of time. I don't know how long. It could be quicker than we think. We probably wouldn't even guess how quick it'll happen, but it's definitely going to happen. And I feel sorry for the people, Europeans, because they're kind of in the same boat the U.S. citizens are. They can vote themselves silly, but they're not going to change anything. And as far as protests go, they're just going to use the military more. And who does that? Dictators. I mean, that's what our country is anymore. So they seen a January 6th insurrection. Ooh, bunch of goofballs raising hell. And they thought that was a serious event. But they had how many years and summers of these BLM protests and all these things, burning blocks down, businesses, even trying to burn government buildings down. And they did nothing.
Yeah.
So they want chaos. And I said, they want us broke and poor and dependent and peasants,
Sure.
you know?
Sure. And yeah, you see on the internet and YouTube and many other news sources all over the place, and you see still a lot of homeless people around in lots of major cities around the US. And you're also seeing a lot of crime where loads of youths are running into supermarkets, grabbing what they can and running out because they know they can't be tried and tested. I think some states don't even prosecute you if you steal below a certain level, like a certain, I think below, is it $200 or 250 or something like that?
No, it's in some cases it's $1,000.
$1,000. Oh wow! So you can just walk in, grab what you can under $1,000, and run out without
They
any
call
fear of going to jail. I mean, this seems to be happening more and more. I'm seeing more and more of this happening in around United States. Um, you know, and a couple of things this will happen. The businesses will suffer, and a lot of these businesses will have to shut down because they're not making the profit. And the prices of goods are going to go further up because these businesses are shut down. So the businesses that are left, um, they increase their prices because there's no competition, and also they're in fear of their safety, so they have to hire security guards and things like that. So obviously, they'll have to kind of increase their prices of goods because of that. And uh, you know, do you see this escalating more and more in the United States? I mean, it
Well,
seems like,
sure.
yeah,
They call it equity. You got
yeah,
time to look up the Safety Act, and now it's hard to find all the things that are no cash bail. They're passing this in the beginning of January, like second degree murder, no cash bail. You can come to
okay,
court now. Oh yeah, and it's all these bigger democratic cities like New York City. They have that pass law. If it's under $1,000, you just let them go. No cash bail. One fella, he just hauled off and smacked this guy.
mm,
He hits the ground and his head hits it, and he ends up dying. And before he died, they had let him out. No cash bail. It was just a simple assault. Okay, you come back. So L.A., New York City, there's quite a few of them. I can't name them all, but they call it just equity because
mm,
too many black people are in jail. Well, there's a lot of white people in jail too. You know what I'm saying? But
yeah,
that's all the Democrats had. They're running out of options. They're not standing up for the working man or anything like that. So they go far left. I mean, with the transvestites and all that stuff. And I have nothing against any of them. But when it gets to the point where they pass laws where you can't really enforce laws, a lot of these cops, they just turn their head. It ain't worth their time. Arresting a guy, bring him in, turn around, let him right back out. And it's going to stay that way until they change, and it's going to keep getting worse because people are going to they're going to get broker. It gets to a point, even regular law-abiding citizens are going to say, hey, if he's doing it, why don't I? You understand
that's
what
right. Yeah,
you know? When you lose everything, there's nothing else to lose
yeah,
it.
yeah,
So, you want to,
yeah.
you're going to go and do the same thing these mobs of kids have been doing. They started that little act during those BLM protests.
Sure. Yeah. Do you think we're gonna see cops protesting for and going on strike? Because as inflation rises, it affects everyone, correct? And everybody seems to be striking, not only just in UK but all over the world. In UK, the nurses are striking. Do you think it will get to the point where cops start striking as well?
Most cops just quit. You
Yeah.
know, if they're old enough, they can retire, or they have a, if it's that bad in that city, and they have a degree or whatever, and that's a profession or career, they could always pack up and move and be a deputy somewhere in the country, you know. So I don't think they'll protest. I mean, and then where that Kathy Hochul said, well, if you don't get a shot, you know, I'll fire you. And that was her basic words. Anyway, she did the same thing with nurses and stuff like that. You don't get that arm ticket, you're done. And what happened? These people just quit. Same thing with the military. There's a lot of good soldiers who just said, hey, enough of this, time to go home. So I don't know about protesting with the police officers and anything like that. As far as strikes go, this is what you're talking. You have to be in a union, number one, to strike. That makes any difference. And in the end, they'll starve you out. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They got all time in the world. They can shut down a plant. They can shut down wherever, you know, these people are striking, or they'll hire non-union people or whatever. But they'll starve you out. It ain't like the old days. But back in the 30s, there was bloody riots. I mean, people getting killed. And I don't know if there's enough desire or, you know, mentality, because in my opinion, if you don't fight for something to have what you have, you'll roll over and play dead. You know what I'm saying? And people just keep taking and taking and taking, and they just keep letting it happen. So
Sure. And are those crimes with mail still happening? Because I think a few months ago there was trains and they've been ransacked and people's mails got stolen.
Yeah. And it's crazy. I've never, you know, I would have never dreamed 20, 30 years ago. I knew it'd get bad sooner or later, but I never, ever would have dreamed these things would go on. I mean, assaults, rapes, and a passenger train. People don't, you know, normal people don't even want to ride the train. You know, they're commuting train. Either quit or move out or something. But it's just unreal. I mean, every day you can find a clip from LA, New York City, or somewhere and they can get away with it. Assault, no cash bail, out you go. Robbery, up to a certain point, no cash bail, out you go. So that's emboldening people that have no intentions of ever working for a living or obeying laws. So
yeah,
it's going to get worse is what I'm saying. It's just
of course. I mean, inflation is still rising, and you know, things are just hitting the tip of the iceberg, and it's gonna tumble like an avalanche. I think with inflation rising, with interest rates rising, like the Fed's increased obviously the interest rates, which means people will have to pay more for their homes, for rent, for mortgages. People might lose their homes if they can't keep up with their payments, and as you know, if you increase the interest rates, if you have any loans yourself, you'll have to pay more. But I think the worst thing is the government, where they are obviously 30 trillion in debt. I mean, the interest payments alone are more than most countries earn in terms of their GDP, and we're talking about 600 billion or 700 billion now. It's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, it's just going to get worse, worse and worse. I mean, it's already bad as it is, but I think once Biden's finished with the midterms, I think he's going to stop releasing those reserve.
well, there's not much left.
There's not much left anyway. Yeah, I think he'll stop soon. Yeah.
They're almost at the point where it's danger level, fill up your tank. You know what I'm saying? It's to that point. You know, that's a fact. They're almost at the end. They're almost at the end.
Sure.
When I knew they would keep it up until the midterms to float through there, but there's just going to be a domino effect, like you were saying. And inflation's going to keep going up. with anytime the fuel goes up, inflation's going to go up, and they have their fake numbers and this and that. I don't think it's 8%. I don't think it's anywhere near that. I think it's a lot higher.
Yeah,
Because
same in UK. Yeah,
if you're paying 25% more than you did a year ago, well,
yeah,
really? It's only inflation's only 8%. Those are all rigged numbers because I go to a grocery store, I buy things, you know, and that's the other thing. Being a consumer driven economy and a Wall Street driven economy, what's going to happen is people are going to stop buying things like that. You know how they always love to put compare our economy with Black Friday shopping for Christmas. Wow, it's going to be a Black Friday, all right. And as soon as people stop buying like they normally do, well, then you're going to start to see it's going to take one thing, then the next thing, and it's just going to get out of control. It's going to get crazier and crazier as the days go by. And that's the only reason that would slow them up sending money to Ukraine is they won't have the money. That would just inflame and rage people, you know, especially if they're losing their homes. You know, I mean, all the interest rates going up, car loan, anything, any kind of loan you have on anything is going to go up. So, and it already has. So,
yeah. It's really scary thought. And I don't think people are prepared for what's to come. I know a lot of people who are quite oblivious to politics. They don't want to even think about what's happening. But I don't think they are prepared for what's really to come. And I think we once we hit a major recession, which will turn into a depression, then stagflation, maybe even a hyperinflation, it's just things are going to get really bad. And we're just starting to hit the, yeah, just we're just in the start of the tunnel. And it's going to be a long journey.
oh yeah, yeah, in fact, that the people that kind of knew this was coming, like I grow a big garden, and this garden it used to be just for a little extra, just a hobby. This year it was whatever I grew. I kept records of what I produced and how much it would take for a year, and now I have that down. So next year my garden will be about double, if not triple. I'll probably triple it because I know older people that can't physically grow gardens, my neighbors and stuff, and I want to help people out too. But that's why I hunt. That's why I whitetail hunt. That's why I fish. I mean, I'm planned ahead as far as that goes. You know what I mean? There's things I need to buy yet and stuff, but to help out. But you're going to have to be able to get to a point where whatever payment you're making, that's the only thing you got to concern yourself with. And as far as extra money or any kind of vacations or any extra, that's going to be out. And that's how people made it through the Great Depression. You remember, like in Britain, they call them victory gardens, right?
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So people got to get that in their head. And if they're living in the city, I really don't know what to tell them. I really don't. I guess that's one of the reasons I live in the country, because I knew years back that something like this is going to eventually happen, because I know there's no way they can sustain this economy, not the way it is. It's impossible. Without a manufacturing base, you're not really a country, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to also talk about water. There seems to be a water crisis happening in the United States, especially around Arizona, Phoenix, California, with the Lake Mead and Lake Powell disappearing day by day. There's also an increased amount of fracking, and what the fracking does is it also contaminates a lot of the groundwater, which a lot of people use as well. And I remember looking at, you are from Michigan, right? I remember seeing an article about Flint, the fact that the tap waters were poisoned with lead and a lot of people didn't drink it. I mean,
Which you got to realize with like lead, all these older cities, Milwaukee, all the older cities use lead pipes.
Yeah.
I can't remember if it was Milwaukee or Chicago or something. They started having problems, the same problems they had in with Flint. They switched over water,
Yeah.
and that was the biggest problem. Number one. Number two, they didn't address. No politician wants to spend any money on anything under the ground because you
Yep.
can't see it. It ain't a bridge. It ain't a big, pretty building. So,
Yeah.
and they've refrained from doing that, their own infrastructure. Well, if they have lead pipes leading into their house, they're going to have lead poisoning, and it's been like that in Chicago. It's all starting to come to the surface now, okay? And until they rectify that, you're not. Put it this way: 30, 40 years ago, I read an article. The future war is going to be over water, and they talked about Arizona, Colorado, fighting over the Rio Grande River, okay? So as far as California and some of these areas, there's a reason there weren't Native Americans there, or a large contingency of them, because there was no water. Well, now with California, like these farmers, or if you're living out in the outskirts, if you have a drilled well, you always pump that water and it was free to you. It was your well water. Well, now they're making them put meters on these these wells. And now they got to pay the state a service fee for using their own water. Now Colorado picked up on that little game. This happened just this past summer. So as far as water goes, there's too many people where they're living. There should have never ever been people there. And it isn't as much climate change as the world goes through different cycles, and we're in a dry cycle. That's all there is to it. And I really, really feel for those people over there. But when you move somewhere and you're living somewhere, you got to keep your eye on everything, I guess. And we're lucky that way in Wisconsin here, where we have, like, even our electricity is driven by a dam, hydroelectric. So our rates are cheaper. We have clean water yet. There's nobody fracking. We may have some runoff from some farmers, but nothing like these other states. So that in itself is going to take over a lot of thinking and a lot of policy because of the water issue. People have to have drinking water. What are they going to do? Pump it all in bottles? I mean, it's going to change. And I don't know how bad it's going to be, but it's getting to the point now where something drastic has to happen in those Western states if they want to keep drinking water.
Yeah.
And I think if they got a really big idea, they would eventually want to pipe water from the Great Lakes in a pipeline, like an oil pipeline, down to those states to provide water. I think at the end game, that's what they're going to do.
Sure. Sure. So going back to the midterms, I forgot to mention John Fetterman, who obviously had a stroke. But, I think in Pennsylvania, there used to be a Republican area, and suddenly he's taken, he's won in Pennsylvania. I mean, how did that happen? Even though he's got a stroke, he's probably not fit to lead. He's probably very poor in terms of health. Was it some sort of sympathy vote he got then or something? How did he win?
I don't think so. I think there's something else going on there, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there's too many things out there that don't make sense, even in a regular election. And I think this is one of them. I think if somebody dug deep enough, they'd find out the reason why he won. But then again, that Oz, he wasn't really campaigning. Oh, ain't that guy, until right at the bitter end he starts talking, but he really didn't show no plan or anything. I think, in my opinion, if it got down to where it was just politics, I think he deserved to lose, because he wasn't giving any hope or anything to these people. He just, I'm not that guy. And that's what the Republicans did across the country. So I do think there's something hinky there, but That's as far as I'll take it until I know any different. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, I don't want your channel getting taken down or whatever, but that's too
Yeah,
way too fishy. You know,
yeah, yeah, definitely fishy, definitely.
that
Um,
that one debate. Hello, everybody. Good night. And then he starts. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah,
You know. But then again, see, same thing with Biden. When he started his his another rigged primary, in my opinion. But when he started that, I could clearly see he was, you know, he was he was definitely not all there. And I said this to a pretty prominent backing Democrat. I told him, if you look at it, this is elder abuse. And he kind of took it as I was trying to be funny, but I was being dead serious. I almost kind of felt sorry for him, their family. Get out there, Joe. We need you, Joe. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
That bugger needed to retire and live his life as best he can. I never really liked the guy. I know his politics and I know his policies, but they just let him go through this. I seen so many occasions, talking about corn pop and just whew, and then
yeah,
people, oh yeah, well he's all right, he's all right. Well, no, he
yeah,
isn't, and he hasn't been. So
exactly. He's walking around like he doesn't know where he is half the time.
the
After a
thing
press
is,
conference, he turns around and he's like walking the wrong way, and
well, yeah, the true blue voters, they don't care. They got their team. They don't care that anything about crime or any of the criminal activities. They don't care about nothing. They just want their guy to win. Period. And you can show them all the facts you want, but it's cognitive dissonance where it's my guy. It's my guy. I can't vote against them. And until the people that normally don't vote get involved, you're going to continually having that. So it's a little hinky, and it's a little doesn't surprise me in a way.
sure. Yeah, I think one of the probably least surprising candidates who won is Ron DeSantis, who's obviously won a majority in Florida. He seems to be very popular in Florida, and it sounds to me that they are probably readying him up as a candidate to lead the Republican presidential vote for him to kind of go against Trump and maybe a few others as well for the next president. Do you think they're just kind of um, do you think they're grooming him to be the next president then, Ron DeSantis, the
Well,
Republicans?
he's going about his ways, and I don't have any true complaints about whatever he's done. I totally back a lot of the things he's done,
Mm.
but I don't know him, really know him. I think it was in Congress for a while, and I don't know anything about his policies or his past voting, and I would definitely look into it.
Yeah.
You get
I
right
de-
down to it.
yeah,
Trump,
I mean, I definitely
scared.
support his sorry, I definitely support his actions on Disney. I think that was very respectable, and even that coming from Britain, I was actually celebrating when I heard that. I think it's about time somebody did that to Disney, really, because Disney has been getting away with all sorts of woke nonsense for years. So like, and the stuff they were doing in schools and
Yeah,
kids, and
well,
that was completely out
that
of order.
story ain't done yet. And that's what the most powerful union in the country is, those teachers union.
Yeah.
And you can't get a teacher fired. We had one teacher, and my kid was in elementary, and he was in a go lay down. He was in elementary, and his teacher would just fall asleep sitting there, you know. And then they never got rid of her until she retired on her own. But what I'm trying to say is, all these, they're definitely a democratic driven society, and they have different ideas. But people are getting sick of a lot of the things that they're trying to teach in school, and they're winning these battles. But it's just going to be a slow slog. But we don't have this up north here. But like, there's only one congressman that's a Democrat in this whole state, And the states has been for the last 15 years, anyways, has been majority. As far as the House goes, state House is majority Republican. And we're different kind of people up here. We're not big city or anything like that, so we don't see a lot of that woke, bizarre stuff in the schools. But as far as Disney, well, we've watched some of the movies, and we never watched any of these woke movies, and it just see the Democrats wanted to create a problem, like everybody hates gay people, and everybody hates this and that because they have nothing else to provide their voting bloc. So we're the big heroes for LGBTQ or whatever it is, and all of this because they have nothing left to offer the people. So, as far as DeSantis, I don't know him as far as his policy when he was in the Congress, but I would say that majority of the people that are Republicans would probably lean his way. People make out this MAGA movement way more than they should, without a doubt. I mean, you got a faction like that, but you'll see those kind of crowd on the opposite side. The true blue, the 20% of that party. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
And Trump's already trying to call him names and stuff. He was good at it at first, but people aren't going to fall into that. I think if, like you told me, and I kind of disagreed with you, that Trump is going to run, and his ego can't keep him from not running. I think he's, like you said, he's going to announce, and then he's going to go after him real hard, but there ain't much to go after him. A lot of people like him. So it's going to be interesting. But like I said, Hillary's making a comeback. Take that.
She is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There's another lady called Lauren Boebert, and apparently she spent the most money running for her campaign, and we're talking about billions here. I think people are mentioning around 3 or 4 billion, could be more. And but she's only won a small majority, and I'm seeing stories about what a waste of money that was. What do you think about?
Well, I don't even know who you're talking about. What race was she in?
Colorado.
Yeah, there ain't much going on in Colorado I know about. And if she's wants to spend that kind of money, that's her prerogative. But yeah, you got to always ask yourself, why does a millionaire, billionaire want to run for an office that makes less than $200,000 a year?
Yeah.
There's always something back of their mind.
That's right. She's obviously a billionaire, but yeah, she's doesn't make any point. There's obviously she's there for a reason.
They run out of fun things to do with their money, and they always strive for that power because it makes them feel good. It gives them something to do, I guess. I don't know. Seems odd to me, but we're regular folk,
Yeah, exactly. So I was going to kind of let's get back into Ukraine, really. I heard about there's another new bill coming out where they're going to send 50 billion more in Ukraine. And I heard them mentioning it, but they probably put it under the carpet waiting for the midterms to be over. But I think over the next few days or maybe weeks, they're probably going to start coming out with that 50 billion. How do you think the American people would react if that passes and all of that gets sent to Ukraine?
Well, it all depends on when they pass it and they send it. You know what I'm saying? There's people are getting sick of it now. Not enough to make a noise, but then again, for this corporate media, will you hear that? Will people hear that? Maybe they think they're by themselves, think this is a ridiculous way to spend money. But if oil cranks up or gas cranks up and they try it then they might have a problem. But there's already been dissent in the Congress, even though they both passed it and go Ukraine. There's getting to the point where I'm sure they'll try it because they have a lame duck session. The Democrats will be in control until January. So they'll definitely try passing it. to keep this thing going. You know what I'm saying? They may reduce it or something in that order, but there are people, Rand Paul and a few others, that are, saying enough is enough. Like I said, it's going to be the economics thing is going to keep them from spending that kind of money anymore in Ukraine. But if they do it within the next couple of weeks or so, I think they'll have a chance of passing it.
That's right. Yeah, but they have to keep sending money to Ukraine because they've started it now, and you know how these neocons work. They always double down on something. So I can never see them back down from anything. They'll double down on every single decision, and they'll keep pouring money into Ukraine for as long as it takes. If they stop providing money to Ukraine, Ukraine will collapse. They will lose everything that they've given to Ukraine. Most of it has been loans. So if Ukraine collapses, they're not going to obviously, Ukraine won't need to pay that back, especially if a new government forms.
They
And
basically already have collapsed. They're living on European money and the U.S. money, and they have been for a long time. They have no commerce. They don't sell anything. They're not collecting any taxes. So American people, the European citizens are all footing the bill, paying their wages, paying for the equipment and everything. And you don't know where any of that money's going. It's bouncing here, bouncing there. And it's so corrupt that I would say out of all the money they spent, they probably put maybe 10, $15 billion actually into it, where all this other money mysteriously just dissipates. Everybody gets their vig, and that explains why all these regular, you would think normal thinking leaders of these European countries are, going along with this. They all got, in my opinion, they all got their little setup. They all got their little golden parachute, and they don't care about their own people enough to stop. You know what I'm saying? So it's not a political thing. It's all greed. It's all washed over. As far as them getting money to Ukraine, I think they might have one good go at it, but by the time Christmas or New Year's, things are going to get bad everywhere, and people are going to say enough is enough. Even these crooked leaders will see that this is not going to go well, and they'll keep trying to do what they do. And God only knows how they will get any illicit money there. But when they figure they've tired out Russia, the only way that stops. So I don't know.
Sure. So what do you think about these escalations they're doing with Taiwan? I mean, they seem to be really pushing for all of these major wars all over the world. And do they really think that they can take on Russia and China at the same time? Because
They're
the
neocons. They're
neocons, yeah,
they're in their own different world.
yeah, it's
Crazy.
crazy.
Yeah, well, they're thinking back when it might have worked. They're not thinking ahead, that's for sure. And at least you can take one thing. Granny Pelosi won't be heading to Taiwan anytime soon. Maybe before the end of the year, but she's not going to be leader of the house anymore. So that's the one given that I'm pretty happy about. I don't have to look at her as much as I have to. But it's the neocons. It's the globalists. They really think they can pull it off, but they know down deep that there's no way possible where the United States, because all these other countries, European countries, don't have that large of a military that could take on Russia, China, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and they'll all pile in. We make a move, you can guarantee, take it to the bank, that China will get involved. They won't stay out of it. China will get involved if it's that much of a push, a military advancement. China will get involved. Like I said, Iran and all these other countries, they'll be more than happy to step on the side of Russia or China.
Yep.
That's a given. Even they
Yeah,
know.
that's right. That's right. I mean, people are also forgetting about North Korea. China does have a lot of neighbors who are very close to China. We're talking about Laos, Cambodia, even Vietnam recently signed a declaration how they're basically going to get closer and closer. But I wanted to talk about Great Britain. Well, it's not great anymore. But they recently sent a delegation to Taiwan, and I was quite disappointed to see that. Really, with all of the issues that Britain is having, they have to go and antagonize China by sending a delegation to Taiwan. And this guy was in Taiwan yesterday trying to sort out some trade links with Taiwan, and yeah, the Chinese weren't very happy about that. And I was reading some Chinese papers. In fact, they were absolutely furious. I mean, I wanted to talk about Britain because Britain, even though we've had Liz Truss and now we've got Rishi Sunak, the puppeteering is exactly the same as way back in the Boris days. So things are not going to change anytime soon. Do you have any thoughts about Britain and why they're acting like this?
Well, they all work for the same people,
Yeah.
AJ. I've made this remark quite a few. Well, I'll say it till the day I die that they're all puppets.
Yep.
They're not so. Take the U.S. as like the CEO of the globalist corporation. The WEF is their spokesperson, and the European Union, their upper management. Okay, they're doing this on all dictates of to push to certain countries that aren't involved and beholden to the elite, and they'll keep pushing them, and they don't care about how many deaths it's caused. Our lives don't matter one iota to them, and until these people get ousted, it'll continue on. I mean, Britain. I've never had any bad feelings towards Britain or anything. I mean, it's a cool little country, you know. I mean, but somewhere along the line, they bought into the same thing that the U.S. was selling. I mean, it may have started out as the U.S. doing this back 50, 60 years ago, but now it's world, all of Europe. They don't care. The globalists don't care if the European dies out, deindustrialized and all that. All they care about is their control, their power, and they want to rule the world. So they're going to use us as proxies. So we're all being used as proxies for the globalists. That's plain and simple. And voting our way out of this is not going to happen until it gets so bad that people rise up.
Yeah, yeah. I think we are heading that way, Frank, and I think it's
Yeah.
going to take a few months or maybe even up to next year because yeah, I think the house of cards is slowly tumbling, slowly falling apart. But we're reaching up to 1.5 hour mark, which I wanted to keep here as a limit. Do you have anything else to say to the audience? Do you have anything else you want to talk about as a final thing?
Well, it was kind of states right last Friday with AJ, and y'all. I'm on the comment section with you. I'm a moderator. I talked with all you guys. You're all pretty good shits. I mean, uh, you're all from different parts of the world, and that's what I like about the internet. I talk
Yeah,
to everybody from, Scotland, wherever, and y'all have some. You're all pretty intelligent. You're smart enough to get on AJ's channel and listen to him, but you're all smart enough if all you got to do is kick in a little money as far as Patreon and come on and do the same thing I did, because I can guarantee you I can learn a lot from you guys about your countries that I wouldn't normally know. So don't be a chicken, kick in a little money in Patreon and do the same thing I did. And if you're on Patreon, he's going to be doing a Friday thing from what he said last week. So he'll send you the link, you jump right in there and you start spilling your guts.
yeah.
Nobody will eat you.
No, I do appreciate all the help and support you have given, but also everyone else in my Patreon and locals. It has helped me survive, and it has helped my channel grow. if I didn't have your help, I would have stopped a long time ago because, as you know, YouTube plays around with monetization. Sometimes they pay me, sometimes they don't, and I'm always like fighting with them, and they're always keeping hold of the money and stuff. Eventually, my channel is going to be completely demonetized, and this is kind of the way I kind of survived with your supports. So it's really, I really, really want to thank everyone for that. And yeah, welcome to join my Patreon locals. Like I said, I will be giving you that more personal touch, like Frank. Obviously we've grown to be friends. We exchange a lot of messages together. And how many other channels can you get that personal touch? I mean, some of these channels have got 9,000, 10,000 Patreons. I mean, how do you give them any personal touch? You can't, because it's just numbers after a certain amount. But I think it's the younger channels like myself who are starting out. They probably need more help than the more established ones. I've always said that, and because if the younger ones don't get the help, they don't survive. So you're just left with all the big ones, but and the small. Yeah, but if you feed the small ones, they'll eventually get big, and that's what you need to kind of think about. But that's all I wanted to say, guys. Thanks for everyone for listening, and thank you, Frank, for coming in. You've been an absolute pleasure and joy to listen to. You have got a lot of knowledge to share with everyone. I've learned a lot from you today as well, and I really thank you for that. And thank you all. Thank you all to the moderators out there, and thank you all for listening. Any last words, Frank, before I end this
I'd
channel?
like to reiterate support for AJ. I mean, the more channels we have like AJ's, the more we're going to know. And the only way we're ever going to get all the sheep and all the people that just too scared to get involved is by having knowledge there for when they do start asking questions. So support AJ as best you can. That's all I'm saying. I'm on a lot of channels, but this is my favorite. I told him that a long time ago. It
Yeah, I
is.
appreciate that.
And
I
the thing of it
appreciate
is,
that.
with AJ, I had a guy working for me years ago, and he was kind of goofy and had the same laugh. And he turned on his channel. I'm listening. Then he started laughing, and holy shit, that's got to be him. No, it wasn't, I guess. But other than that, he's got a good sense of humor, and he does provide a lot of monetary and stock market or that kind of business end of it that I have no clue. But like I said, it's definitely, without a doubt, support him. And don't be, if you're a Patreon, don't be scared to jump on. I had stage fright last week, and I said, well, I used to Beller at a crew every day. I can handle talking to a computer. So here I am.
No, I really appreciate the kind words, Frank. I really appreciate it. And yeah, we're going to end it there. Thanks for everyone. Thanks for everyone who has been listening to us. And I appreciate your time, Frank. I really appreciate you coming on and speaking to me. And take care, guys. And we'll see you soon. We'll see you in the next program. Bye bye for now.